Welcome back to the Lacroix Cruiser, where we're fixing instead of financing a pickup truck. In today's installment, what we're going to be doing is trying to fix the EGR valve. Now, you can replace them, but unfortunately all my parts stores around here don't have any in stock. So I'm going to see if I can fix it. The problem we're having with the EGR is we're getting a check engine light anytime we rev the engine higher than about 3,000 RPM. If we keep it below 3,000 RPM, check engine light never comes on. As soon as you get past that 3 or 3,100 RPM, the check engine light comes on, and the code is 410, which means EGR flow, meaning either the EGR valve is not opening properly or the passages are stopped up a little bit. We're going to be removing the EGR valve and from there investigating, see if we can fix it, get it working properly. If we can, great. If not, we'll have to find a replacement and put it on the truck. While the EGR valve is not necessarily easy to get at on this vehicle, it's right at the back here. It's actually not too difficult to take off, just getting to it. Now, there are a few things attached to the EGR valve. It's attached to the intake plenum with 2 bolts, and there's this very large nut going to this pipe that goes down to the exhaust system. We need to remove those. In preparation for this, over the last couple days, what I've done is on the large exhaust nut, sprayed a bit of lubricant, some PB Blaster to be exact, to get it loosened up and hopefully make it easy to come off. So let's give it a try. And I got very lucky. Now, this is not a bolt you want to force. This is not something you want to put a lot of pressure on because you don't want to twist that exhaust pipe. If it's not coming off for you, you can take a propane torch, heat it up a little bit. If you have an induction heater, even better. Do that. Be sure not to burn anything around it. But at the same time, what I've done by putting the lubrication on it over the last couple days has seemed to help. And then there's 2 half-inch bolts holding it on back here. Again, they should be easy to come off. Plus, there's a vacuum line. So let me take all of that off and we'll take a look at the valve itself. Wow, it even comes off by hand. Not quite. I was able to get a turn or 2 out of it, but not much. Luckily, we got it off relatively easily. Same thing, I use penetrating oil on these, and as you can see, I'm not having to work too hard to get them off. That's a good thing. And we'll take a look, but you never know. Maybe the previous owner was kind enough to have used some anti-seize on these. They got a silvery hue to them, you never know. Oh, actually, I could get a ratchet on there. The steel bolt going into aluminum, it's easy to undo. That doesn't happen every day. At this point, I don't need the ratchet itself, but so we have the EGR valve, the gasket itself is not looking too good though. We'll have to get some high temp RTV for that. And the passage is actually nice and clear, which is great. That means the valve itself is probably just a little sticky. We'll use some carburetor cleaner, get it all cleaned up, put it back in, and hopefully get it working the way it should be. I have the EGR valve set up in the vise and got a little probe going in the bottom here and pushing on the valve itself. Seems to be working properly, and I can hear and feel the air being pushed out of the vacuum connection there. So everything seems to be working properly with the valve. Let me get some carb cleaner, get everything cleaned up in there, and then we'll put it back on the truck. Unfortunately, I can't see the backside of it without using my camera. I'm going to take you along for the ride. Let's see if we can get some light on there. That's what it's looking like on the back of the intake. So again, we'll have to clean that surface up. And as you can see, the hole in the intake is nice and clear. Sometimes they get completely clogged up. Not the case here, which is great. We'll clean everything up, put some RTV on it, and put it back together. I have some carb cleaner from our good friends at CleanFlow, and no, this is not a sponsored video. But let's throw some in here. Let's soak for a moment. Do its thing. The EGR valve is a very, very simple unit. There's a rubber diaphragm up here that we can hear moving, and there's actually little slots that you can see it if it's well placed. In the case of the 4.9, it is not well placed. You can't see it moving when it's in action. And then you have basically a valve, and it looks just like a valve on a car, that fluted shape. And we just want to make sure that valve seat is nice and clean. And what we will do is turn it upright like this. Fill this section. So where the exhaust comes into it, and observe to see if there's any leak down. If there's any leak down, then we know we have a bit of an issue. But right now it's not leaking down. Let it sit for a moment or two. We'll check it again. And if it hasn't leaked down, then we're good. Let me fill it right up to the edge here. So fill to the brim. We'll let the carb cleaner do its job for a few minutes while I go clean off the remaining gasket material from the intake. It's been roughly 2 minutes. No leak down whatsoever. So let's push in on the valve. Let the carb cleaner go past the valve to clean the seat off. And then get all the carb cleaner out of there. And we'll clean off this gasket face here. I don't want any of the gasket material going in here, so let me stuff it with a bit of paper towel. That way when I pull the paper towel out, it'll pull anything that went in there. Got a nice brass scraper. Oh, well, that's easier than anticipated. Oh, look at that. There was a gasket on top of the gasket. I use the same scraper on the intake, which is aluminum. That's why the brass is nice. On the metal, it wouldn't have mattered too much. And I can finish cleaning it up with a file if I want to. There we go, nice clean surface. Let me get some high temp RTV and go from there. Or actually, I believe I have some gasket paper. Why don't I just do it that way instead? Be a lot better. Making your own gaskets is not a difficult thing to do. So let me just cut out a small piece here. And once I have my small piece, I'll align one of the edges. So I'm going to use this edge here as my starting point. Then using a ball peen hammer will work. This is actually a gasket forming hammer. Very old, but still does the job. And wherever you have a hole, poke that through. Once that one is poked through, put the bolt through the hole to keep it located. Then using the pointed end again, find roughly where the hole is. The hitting with the hammer cuts the gasket. Put the other one in. Now using the flat face, go around and cut the rest of the gasket. So now we have the gasket perfectly cut, but we still have one hole to do. That's the one here. So now we have a perfectly sized, perfectly cut gasket to seal this up. Now if you remember, I put in the bottom of this one a bit of paper towel. Let me extract that paper towel from there and we'll be ready to install this back on the truck. So first thing, we have that piece of gasket, and I'd put down 2 pieces of paper towel. There's the one. And there's the second one. Let's go install this on the truck. Oh, I have a little piece of gasket paper remaining there. Let's finish cutting it off. There we go. One last operation here. I'm going to brush the threads. That way we're getting rid of any rust on them. And we will be putting anti-seize there. So if I ever have to remove this again, it'll be a lot easier to do. Nice and clean there, nice and clean in there. We're almost ready to go back on the truck. Like I mentioned, and same thing on the bolts. go install it back on the truck. Give you a slightly different viewpoint. So I have my EGR valve. It goes like this. I have my gasket that I created. And I'll just put the upper bolt in through the gasket paper as well. It'll line everything up. That way I'm not fumbling with the gasket. And apparently our light has decided to leave the room. But while I'm stretched out here, just let me get this bolt on. I'll get a new battery for the light. I get the bottom bolt lined up before tightening anything down. And it doesn't seem to want to line up properly. So let me get a little pick. There we go. It's lined up. Let's get it in as far as we can without the ratchet. And then use the ratchet to finish it off. I'm not going to tighten it down until I get the top bolt in its place or seated, and then we'll tighten everything up. Now, some gasket paper that you'll use is just felt. This gasket paper is a high temperature one. And you can use the high temperature one anywhere in the system. So if you're buying it, buy the high temp unit. That way it'll be easier for you. Because some of these gasket papers are literally just they look like cork almost. And they'll melt just as quickly. Now we're doing this on a old body style F150, but the EGR valve is basically the same in any vehicle. They just look a little different. They'll have a different placement, but the function is the same. Plug the vacuum line back in. Next, go around, tighten the big nut down. So I can start it by hand, because that's how I got it off. Make sure the pipe is nicely aligned. And hopefully, if anybody ever has to take this off again, my application of anti-seize will be heralded as a good idea. And unfortunately, you will need an 1.25" wrench for this, because a wrench of the adjustable variety, the head just won't fit in there. So now we're ready to start the truck up. We'll check it out and make sure that there's no leaks. See if the EGR is working. We'll clear that code and take it for a drive. Truck is running. Check engine light is still on. Let's take a look at the OBD2. So, enter, scanning, reading, doing its thing. So we have code 136, that's a new one, 141, and 401. So 401 is the one that says for the EGR. I'll have to look up the other two, see what they are. So 136 and 141. Let's erase those. No more check engine light. Let's go for a little drive. So before, the check engine light would come on as soon as you hit 3,000 RPM. Going to let it warm up a little bit before we get to 3,000 RPM. I don't know if you can hear it, but there is a bit of an exhaust leak that will need to be taken care of later. Okay, the needle is starting to move for the temperature. So we'll be able to turn around and go through the gears, get it up a little higher in the rev range, and see if we get that nasty little check engine light coming back on. Those of you that have never driven one of these trucks, you don't know what you're missing. If you have a new truck like that one at the side of the road, they're just not the same. It's not as comfortable, not as fun, and of course, a lot more expensive. So we'll take you to downtown Saint-Alphonse-de-Granby. You'll see it's a thriving metropolis. Ooh, 3,500 RPM, no check engine light in third gear. So we have success. We've cleaned our EGR valve. We've taken that nasty P401 code away. We still had the other two that might be related to the EGR. I'll have to look them up, see what they mean, and go from there. Now, this truck is a 1996. That was the first year of the OBD2. Before that, they had OBD1, which wasn't as good when it came to giving you very precise information. So a lot of people have described these trucks as fast tractors. They're not the highest revving, freest revving engines in the world. I have a BMW with an inline six. It's a much different experience. But nonetheless, a good workhorse of an engine. They do what they need to do. They're reliable. This one is low mileage. It's only got 204,000 kilometers, so roughly about 120,000 miles, 125, somewhere in there. I'm sure someone in the comments will correct my math. This truck has the 5-speed transmission in it, the Mazda unit, and 355 gears. And the speedometer is GPS verified, which is nice. And here we are going over the Rivière Yamaska River. And now we're in downtown Saint-Alphonse-de-Granby. You have our little school there. We have the grade kindergarten to 6th school on the right. A couple houses. We'll have a feed mill coming up just a little bit. And that basically ends downtown Saint-Alphonse-de-Granby. So not a big town in any way. It's all farms. So once we get rid of that exhaust leak, we'll have a much quieter truck. It's actually a nice quiet truck to begin with. Once you don't have that exhaust leak, as you can hear now, since I'm not pressing on the gas, we don't have that pesky little exhaust leak. Therefore, a very quiet truck. And with our quad handling shocks, sway bars, takes the corners with ease, well above the speed limit by at least 5 kilometers per hour. So we're starting to get this truck nice and sorted. Like I said, the only major thing now is that exhaust leak. We've changed the fluid in the rad. The next video we'll be doing an oil change. We'll be doing an oil flush at the same time, and our good friend Seafoam, 4,000 RPM and no check engine light. So we'll leave you with this. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas, please leave them below. And we'll see you in the next Fixing Instead of Financing an Old Truck